Ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing our painting reactions, diving into some classical pieces of art, I should say. And the final one for today on this beautiful April day is the Raft of the Medusa, composed and painted by Théodore Géricault. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Never seen this one. Never heard of this one. But we're going to dive on in. So I'm pulling it up right now. Let me get my music playing as I kind of forgot it last time. There's the music. And here we go. The Raft of the Medusa. So immediately I'm noticing a very, very dramatic painting. Let me move myself over here. There we go. Very, very dramatic. A lot of figures on here. A lot of people on here. Seemingly in a very desperate situation. I'm noticing what I believe to be a lot of death. So Raft of the Medusa, is Medusa on here somewhere? Is this like a tragedy? This is a fated voyage where they're trying to get away from something and kind of like trying to get away from that particular Gorgon. Or isn't that what Medusa was, a Gorgon? They're trying to escape a certain fate. So let's dive into this a little bit. Can I zoom in a little bit on this one? We can. Beautiful. I love when I can actually zoom in. He looks out of it. He's dead. So they look like they're on a raft of sorts. And I mean, like, they've probably experienced shipwreck already. And these are the last survivors of that shipwreck. Hence, you know, they're kind of just surviving on this little particular raft. So they were already in a desperate situation. And now it's getting worse. What I love, I gotta say, I love, you know, around all the death and, you know, disaster that's happening, this gentleman right here. Also striking because not only is his hair white and woolly, but, you know, draped in the red cloth there. He's injured clearly. He has a true expression of hopelessness. He has the true expression of giving up. This is giving up. You think you had a hard day at work? Think about this gentleman right here. It's just the pure depression and futility. Like, this is it. There's no hope here. While everyone, of course, around the deck who is alive is clearly in panic, running or, you know, trying to escape whatever fate may be, he has resolved himself to his fate, which I think is probably one of the most striking figures so far that I've noticed here on this particular painting. Now, like I said, you do see a lot of dead corpses around here as well. This corpse is draped in a very uncomfortable manner. Like their legs are on the ship, kind of broken amongst this beam, and clearly drowned here. And most of them are clearly reaching towards the top right, which as you scan and look up, as these three are here, looking towards the top right, what are they doing? They're holding bands of stripped, you know, material, cloth, whatever they can, they're waving. And that immediately, the way they're looking in this direction makes me think maybe there is hope somewhere. And I don't know if you guys can see it. Right there. Right there. I'm imagining that is perhaps a lighthouse, a fort, some sort of sign of land. And I think that's the hope that they're all reaching towards as well. Now, interestingly, like, I don't know about you, I can't for sure tell you that is land. It seems like it because it is standing straight up above the horizon here. But for all we know, at a distance, could just be another wave, another mirage on the horizon. However, they are resigned to this hope that it looks like here. So I think it's really cool that these figures in this particular triangle, in this shape, and in them as well, are looking ahead, forward to this hope. While on the back of the ship, those who are not facing that direction have already resigned themselves to death and despair. I think that is really, really cool. The two contrasting, you know, progressions. And if you look on the back, if we ignore the right side, I might have hit the microphone. If we ignore the right side, look at this giant wave right here that is about to come crashing into the raft. So on this particular side, you're actually getting a nice half here. On this particular side, yes, it is death and destruction. This is the hopelessness, that wave of death that will possibly capsize this raft. However, this side It's clearly more hopeful and uplifting, and quite literally uplifting because we've moved up in this painting while you are down and despair on this side right here. Something else I'm kind of noticing, two things. This gentleman right here that's way in the back, let me zoom in on him, holding his head like this, he has snapped. While this gentleman has resolved and resigned to his fate and, he's just in his last thoughts, he's in a similar position, but he's snapping. He's losing it. He's going mad. Who wouldn't in the face of death? And speaking of which, is it me or does this cloth right here and this tent or curtain actually look like the face of death? A skeleton eye hole of sorts, a nose hole, and an open gaping mouth. So death is on board here on the raft of the Medusa. What an incredible painting. This is so cool. All right. I know that I'm kind of doing these painting reviews and reactions as like an April Fool's joke. But it's actually kind of fun. It's actually kind of fun getting to put this part of my brain to use. Okay. Like I said, we've kind of gone over that, but this is just so interesting. They've really strapped together the best they could, this raft. So this really is their last hope. And of course, the question is, as you come back out of it and look at it as a whole, will they make it or will they not? The way that the sail is billowing, the wind is clearly coming from this direction. So I don't know. It's sending them a different way. I don't know if they're going to make it. Let's dive into some of the information on this particular piece of art here. It says, completed when the artist was 27, the work has become an icon of French Romanticism. It is an over life-size painting that depicts a moment from the aftermath of the wreck of the French naval frigate Medusa, which ran aground off the coast of today's Mauritania in 1816. It says at least 150 people were set adrift on a hurriedly constructed raft, but all 15 died in the 13 days before their rescue. And those who survived endured starvation. I'm sorry, all but 15, by the way. All who survived endured starvation and dehydration and practiced cannibalism, one custom of the sea. The event became an international scandal in part because of its cause was widely attributed to the incompetence of the captain. Géricault chose this large-scale uncommissioned work to launch his career using a subject that had already generated widespread public interest, as the events had fascinated him. So there were only 15 people that survived. So when we count, I guess I could bring it up here, it's easier. Are there 15 subjects here? There's a lot of dead. I can't imagine. 1, 2, let's see if I can get them all. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, well, some of these are clearly dead. So let's try and count live people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I probably missed one. Somewhere in there's 15. I probably missed one when I was counting. But so I do love that he captured the 15 people surviving in here. Of course, amongst the dead as well. It said Théodore's relations had close family connections with the French Navy and were directly involved in France's colonies and their slave trade. Indeed, one of these relations, a naval officer and a slave owner, died defending colonial interests on the the coast of West Africa. So perhaps that's why this gentleman right here may be a slave of the time. Perhaps this one as well, and hence why they're on this raft as well. It says before work on this final painting, he undertook extensive research and produced many preparatory sketches. He interviewed 2 of the survivors and constructed a detailed scale model of the raft. That is amazing. He visited hospitals and morgues where he could view firsthand the color and texture of the flesh of the dying and the dead. You cannot say that he was not going for accuracy and he did not do his research. As he anticipated, the painting proved highly controversial at its first appearance, attracting passionate praise and condemnation in equal measure. However, it's established his international reputation, and today is widely seen as seminal in the early history of the Romantic movement in French painting. That is absolutely incredible. So here's the plan of the Medusa and how they constructed it. That looks like a pretty sturdy raft, how they kind of did that. Diving into some of this, it says, the raft carried the survivors to the frontiers of human experience. Crazed, parched, and starved, they slaughtered mutineers, ate their dead companions, and killed the weakest. After 13 days, the raft was rescued by the Argus by chance. No particular search effort was made for the raft. They kind of gave up on them. By this time, only 50 men were still alive. The others had been killed or thrown aboard by their comrades, died of starvation, or had themselves thrown themselves into the sea. And of course, we have the description here. Let's kind of dive into it a little bit, huh? The work is set at a moment when the ruin of the raft may be said to be complete. It is at its very last breaths. The makeshift raft is shown as barely seaworthy as it rides the deep waves, while men are broken and in utter despair. One old man holds the corpse of his son at his knees, another tears at his hair in frustration and defeat. Of course, that would be the person in the back. A number of bodies litter the foreground, waiting to be swept away. The men in the middle have just viewed a rescue ship. One points it out to another, and an African crew member, Jean-Charles, stands on an empty barrel and frantically waves his handkerchief to draw the ship's attention, of course. So that's what that image, or that little thing right there, that object. So it's a ship. But once again, it does represent that hope. That's such a great piece of history to capture on this. The pictorial composition of the painting is constructed upon two pyramidal structures. The perimeter of the large mass on the left of the canvas forms the first. The horizontal grouping of the dead and dying figures in the foreground forms the base from which the survivors emerge. So you know what? I kind of caught that. We kind of caught that. If I can catch that on a first reaction to the painting, the artist has done a great job. And you can kind of, I mean, it's kind of given to you just by the ropes forming the mast of the sail. You know? Like I said, the death on this side and hope on this side. I think that is so, so cool. It says one follows the mask, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Overall, the painting is dark and relies largely on the use of the somber, mostly brown pigments, a palette that he had believed was effective in suggesting tragedy and pain. The work's lighting has been described as Caravagesque, after the Italian artist closely associated with tenebrism, the use of violent contrast between light and dark. Even the sea is muted, being rendered in dark greens rather than dark blues. And of course, from the distant area of the rescue ship, a bright light shines, providing illumination to an otherwise dull brown scene, as that is where the light is coming from. That is so good how that's done. Isn't that cool? Hold on, I just saw something interesting. Géricault, who had just been forced to break off a painful affair with his aunt, shaved his head and from November to July lived a disciplined monastic existence in his studio. He used friends as models, most notably the painter Eugène Delacroix, who modeled for the figure in the foreground with face turned downward and one arm outstretched. That is different. He painted with small brushes and viscous oils, which allowed little time for reworking and were dry by the next morning. He kept his colors apart from each other. His palette consisted of vermilion, blah, 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 blah. Here's his palette. Isn't that so cool? Like, if you were to take this painting, this amazing piece of work, and you break it down, these are the only colors that he used. I think that is incredible. To bring it down to the basics. I never even thought about that. He drew an outline sketch of the composition onto the canvas. He then posed models one at a time, completing each figure before moving on to the next, as opposed to the more usual method of working over the whole composition. The concentration in this way on individual elements gave the work both a shocking physicality and a sense of deliberate theatricality, which some critics consider an adverse effect. That is so cool. Like, how that's done, all of the thought that goes into it, like, this is absolutely incredible. Interpretation and legacy. The Raft of Medusa, or of the Medusa, contains the gestures and grand scale of traditional history painting. However, it presents ordinary people rather than heroes reacting to the unfolding drama. The Raft pointedly lacks a hero, and his painting presents no cause beyond sheer survival. The work represents in the words of Christine writing the fallacy of hope and pointless suffering, and at worst, the basic human instinct to survive, which has superseded all moral considerations and plunged civilized man into barbarism. That is so cool. That is incredible. This was an incredible piece of work. Listen, like I said, I'm kind of doing this as like an April 1st, April Fool's prank, but like, I'm enjoying it. I'm actually having a good time. It's getting the brain working a little different, you know? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed these painting reactions. We're going to get back to the music reactions. We're going to dive back into them. You know. But this was actually kind of a fun little side quest, basically. Raft of the Medusa. I had a good time. Press the like button. I hope that you enjoyed this little mini-series of sorts. Thank you as always for watching. Please enjoy the rest of your day. If you want more, let me know. Because like I said, I've genuinely actually had a lot of fun doing this. So yeah, have a great one, guys. Bye.